Similarly, not everything you plant works out. I was terrible at growing peppers. I was terrible at growing certain flowers. I planted tens of thousands of dollars of dahlia tubers that I thought, I'll take some of them out of the ground and then other ones all overwinter. Well, a harsh winter killed everything. I lost all of that. Things don't always work out the way you plan it to be. That doesn't mean that you stop doing those strategies or those tactics. There's going to be relationships where you meet with people and you say, I thought that was going to go somewhere, and it fizzles out. Or you have a client you think is a slam dunk and then their brother-in-law gets their license and they decide to just go with them. These kinds of things happen. Everything doesn't always work out, and it doesn't mean it's that you're doing the wrong thing. It just sometimes means that you need to put more input. I'll give you a good example of this is when I was growing flowers, I spent $7,000 putting up these two little hoop houses that protected my crops from harsh weather and gave them a little bit of a warming period. I was trying a no-till strategy, so I didn't till the ground before. I just kind of covered it in tarps, killed off everything underneath, and then I planted directly in there. And so I planted this all out with seedlings that I had cultivated in my basement. They were beautiful. I had like simulated weather conditions in there, so they were like strong and could withstand wind. I got them all planted, perfectly spaced rows. Like, it was hours of work. And over the next couple of days, every time I went to the plot, they were cut right off at the bottom. And I was like, what the hell? Is someone going through with a pair of scissors? Like, what the fuck is happening here? I'm losing all my seedlings. I don't have anything to replace it. It was actually just like my strategy to prep the ground was good from like an ecology perspective of having living organisms and everything from a soil quality perspective. But I had also created the perfect habitat for a certain type of pest called a cutworm to thrive. And essentially what a cutworm does is it goes under the soil surface, and at night it just comes up, cuts the plant, eats that little bit, leaves the rest to die and rot on the ground, and goes back underground. So like basically Satan's plant reincarnated for a farmer. But this killed my whole tunnel of flowers. There was nothing I could do for it. I reached out to other farmers, I reached out to other people, and they just said, you just have to really heavily till that area going into the next season to prevent that from happening. And obviously I was too far into the season to do that. So that whole plot just ended up being a loss for me. In our business, there's certain things that go sideways. Deals get blown up. Things happen where deals fall through. The beauty thing for us is we don't have to worry about a next season coming. We have a next day that we can start, we can pick back up, brush ourselves off, and you just have to reset your mindset and decide, okay, well, how am I going to prepare for this better? Our cycle is so quick that we can wipe the windshield, restart the next day with a blank slate, take the strategies, take the pain points, take everything that went wrong, tweak it, and go back into the next day and set ourselves up for success that way. That's a huge difference between these two industries, and one that I'm hugely grateful for because it allows us to come back and iterate so much quicker. Like, I can tell you from January how I did things to how I do things today, radically different. We're always evolving and improving the process, and we don't have to wait for whole seasons. We don't have to wait for another fall and winter, a long period to just test a little strategy. We can constantly be testing, iterating, and improving in the cycle. To that point, when you're testing and you're starting a new strategy, things are going to fail. So something's going to go wrong where you work for an hour on a podcast, you work for an hour on a YouTube video, or 2 hours if you're editing yourself, probably more. Nikki does the editing, so I have no idea how long it takes. But then, it gets 5 views and you're like, holy shit, this sucks. And that's the same thing in the mortgage space. I remember my first couple discovery calls, my first few realtor meetings, I absolutely bombed them. They were terrible. But going back and every time just trying to get 1% better, now my calls are like not amazing. My calls are pretty good. My realtor meetings, I find that when I have them, I lock them in. It's just like second nature now. I'm good at the process, and there's still tons of room for improvement. I don't think this is an industry you can ever get stagnant and stop learning and stop improving, but you eventually get to a point that's good. And same with farming. Like, my first couple plantings, my yields were terrible. My harvests were terrible. I was so slow. I remember my first delivery, I actually had to have Levia stay home from work and help me harvest because I was hours behind, and it was just fucking awful. And I ended up like calculating what I made, and it was like $2.50 per hour, not even factoring in her labor, and just total shit show. So over time, I got more efficient and I could bang out like a huge harvest and delivery in the same day, covering like hundreds of dollars of product, which is pretty good for a farm. But that was only in time. And same within the mortgage industry. Like now, what I can do in terms of underwriting, client care, all of that stuff used to take hours. You get faster and faster, and your process gets better and better, but you have to allow yourself the patience to do the reps. And if there's things you're putting off, you're just going to delay the growth there. So force yourself to do those uncomfortable things, force yourself to slow down to get fast, because when you prioritize doing those painful things, you will get better and that will ultimately boost your overall performance.